Ambassador Gina Kim felt her stomach drop as the words appeared on the massive holographic display floating above the Senate floor. The blue letters seemed to burn into her vision. Emergency Resolution 2387, Complete Disarmament of Human Forces. Around her, representatives from 847 different alien species murmured in their various languages, creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and electronic tones that filled the crystal chamber of Centauri Station. Speaker Vorthak, a towering reptilian creature with emerald scales that caught the light, raised his clawed hand for silence. His yellow eyes swept across the assembled delegates before settling on Gina. The Galactic Consular Senate has reached a unanimous decision, he announced, his voice carrying the weight of authority that came from representing one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. Humanity must surrender all military assets within 30 standard galactic days. Gina's aide, Minho Park, stood behind her with his communication device pressed to his ear. She could hear him speaking in rapid Korean to the Emergency Council back on Earth. His voice was steady, but she noticed his free hand was clenched into a fist. The young man had been with her for 3 years, and she had never seen him this shaken. The evidence is clear, Vorthak continued, his forked tongue flicking out as he spoke. Human forces have achieved victory in every military engagement since your species joined our galactic community. The HFY War, which our best strategists predicted would last 3 years, ended in 3 days under human command. The Crystalline Rebellion, which had torn apart the Andromeda sector for decades, was resolved in 18 hours after human intervention. The Thrakari delegation, insect-like beings with chitinous armor and multiple arms, began their characteristic clicking sounds that indicated agreement. Their compound eyes reflected the chamber's lights like thousands of tiny mirrors. Beside them, the Luminari representatives, beings of pure energy contained within crystalline forms, hummed in harmonious tones that resonated through the chamber. Even your merchant vessels carry weaponry that surpasses our military standards, added Commander Velnari of the Silicon Architects, her rocky form shifting as she spoke. Last month, a single human trading ship destroyed 3 pirate vessels that had been terrorizing our shipping lanes. Your captain claimed it was merely self-defense. Gina wanted to stand and defend her species, to explain that every human victory had been in defense of weaker civilizations, that every show of force had been measured and precise. But she remained seated, knowing that protocol demanded she listen to the full charges before responding. General Zextar of the Aquatic Consortium activated another holographic display, showing tactical analysis of human military actions. His tentacles moved gracefully as he manipulated the data. Observe the pattern, he gurgled through his translation device. Humans do not simply win battles, they dominate them so completely that resistance becomes impossible. This level of military superiority poses an existential threat to galactic stability. The accusations continued for over an hour. Species after species presented evidence of human military effectiveness. They showed recordings of human soldiers moving with impossible coordination, human ships executing maneuvers that defied conventional tactics, human commanders making decisions that seemed to anticipate their enemies' actions before they made them. What disturbed Gina most was not the accusations themselves, but the genuine fear she saw in the delegates' faces. These were not warlike species seeking to eliminate competition. Many of them were peaceful civilizations who had never known serious conflict until they encountered humanity. They truly believed that humans represented a threat to everything they held dear. The resolution is simple, Vorthak declared as the presentations concluded. All human military vessels, weapons systems, defensive installations, and armed personnel must be surrendered to joint galactic custody. Economic sanctions will begin immediately. Any resistance will be met with combined military action from all member species. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the translation systems. Gina felt the weight of 847 different species' attention focused on her. In her earpiece, she could hear frantic discussions taking place in the emergency session back on Earth. World leaders, military commanders, and scientists were all trying to process what had just happened. Ambassador Kim, Vorthak called out, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. Does the human delegation have an immediate response to this resolution? Gina stood slowly, feeling every eye in the chamber watching her movement. She had been Earth's primary diplomatic representative for 15 years, had negotiated trade agreements worth trillions of credits, had helped establish peaceful relations with dozens of species. But nothing in her experience had prepared her for this moment. Honorable Speaker, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics, the human delegation acknowledges receipt of Resolution 2387. We will transmit these proceedings to Earth immediately and provide our government's response within the allotted time frame. Her words were formal and diplomatic, giving nothing away about humanity's intentions. But inside, her mind was racing. How had it come to this? How had 50 years of peaceful cooperation led to this moment of ultimate confrontation? As the session officially ended, delegates began filing out of the chamber in small groups, their conversations animated. Some seemed relieved that action was finally being taken against the human threat. Others appeared worried about the implications of forcing such a militarily superior species into a corner. Minho approached her, his communication device finally silent. "Ambassador, Earth wants to know if we should begin emergency evacuation procedures for human civilians in contested sectors." Gina looked out through the chamber's transparent walls at the star field beyond. Somewhere out there, scattered across hundreds of worlds, millions of humans were going about their daily lives, unaware that their species had just been declared the greatest threat to galactic peace. Farmers on agricultural worlds, miners in asteroid belts, researchers on distant stations, all of them now potential targets if this crisis escalated. "Tell them to prepare for all possibilities," she said quietly. "And tell them we're coming home. Earth needs to decide whether we're going to comply with this ultimatum or face the combined might of the entire galaxy." As they walked toward the docking bay where their ship waited, Gina couldn't shake the feeling that the next 30 days would determine not just humanity's future in the galactic community, but whether humanity would have any future at all. The secure meeting room deep within Centauri Station was smaller than the main Senate chamber, but no less important. Heavy blast doors sealed the space from outside interference, and scrambling fields prevented any electronic surveillance. Only the most senior military commanders from each major galactic power were present for this emergency session. General Zextar floated in his specialized water tank, his blue-green tentacles moving gracefully as he prepared his presentation. The Aquatic Consortium had been tracking human military activities longer than any other species, and his findings had alarmed every government that received them. Around the circular table, representatives from dozens of civilizations waited with growing tension. "Fellow commanders," Zextar began, his voice translated through the liquid medium of his tank, "what I am about to show you will change how we view our human neighbors forever." The lights dimmed as holographic displays filled the center of the room. The first image showed a star map of the Zephyr system, with tactical overlays indicating troop movements and fleet positions. The Zephyrian War began as a territorial dispute between the Zephyrians and the Draknari Empire, Zextar explained. Both sides had been fighting for control of the mineral-rich worlds in this system for over 2 years. Our best military analysts predicted the conflict would continue for at least 3 more years, possibly longer. The display shifted to show massive fleet formations engaged in brutal combat. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as ships traded devastating volleys of energy weapons and missiles. Then the humans arrived, Zextar continued. They claimed they were responding to a distress call from Zephyrian civilians trapped on the contested worlds. Within 72 hours, the entire war was over. The hologram replayed the final battle in slow motion. Human ships appeared at the edge of the system and moved with a coordination that seemed impossible. They did not charge into battle like typical military forces. Instead, they moved like dancers, each vessel perfectly positioned to support the others. Commander Velnari, her crystalline body reflecting the light from the displays, leaned forward for a better view. "Show them the tactical analysis," she requested in her synthesized voice. The display zoomed in on individual human ships. Their weapons fired with surgical precision, disabling enemy vessels rather than destroying them completely. Their defensive systems seemed to predict incoming attacks before they were even launched. Most disturbing of all, they appeared to coordinate their actions without any detectable communication between ships. "Notice how they target specific systems," Zextar pointed out with one tentacle. "Engine compartments, weapon arrays, life support systems. They disable rather than destroy, but they do it so efficiently that resistance becomes impossible." General Korth from the Mammalian Federation shifted uncomfortably in his chair. His species had been warriors for thousands of years, but even they had never seen such precise military action. "What about their casualties?" he asked. "Zero," Zextar replied flatly. Not a single human ship was lost or even seriously damaged. Meanwhile, both the Zephyrian and Draknari fleets were completely neutralized. The room fell silent as this information sank in. To end a major interstellar war without losing a single ship was beyond impressive, it was terrifying. The hologram shifted to show a different star system, this one scarred by decades of conflict. "The Crystalline Rebellion," Velnari announced, taking over the presentation. My own people had been fighting the Silicon Separatists for 43 years. Entire worlds had been reduced to rubble. Billions had died on both sides. The display showed the aftermath of countless battles. Shattered space stations drifted in orbit around dead planets. Asteroid fields that had once been thriving colonies stretched across the void. The humans claimed they were conducting a routine trade mission when they encountered our conflict, Velnari continued. They offered to mediate, but both sides refused. The separatists actually fired on the human merchant convoy. The tactical display showed what happened next. A single human vessel, identified as a cargo hauler, suddenly revealed hidden weapon systems that dwarfed anything either side possessed. Within minutes, it had disabled the entire separatist fleet without destroying a single ship. 18 hours, Velnari said quietly. In 18 hours, they accomplished what we could not achieve in 4 decades. They forced both sides to negotiate by demonstrating that continued fighting was pointless. General Korth pulled up additional files on his personal display. The pattern is consistent across every human military intervention, he said. They demonstrate overwhelming superiority, resistance collapses, and peace is restored. They never seem to suffer casualties, never retreat, never show any weakness. Admiral Thess of the Avian Commonwealth, her feathered crest raised in agitation, spoke for the first time. What about their civilian vessels? Surely their merchants and explorers are not as dangerous. Zextar's tentacles moved to display new information. Last month, the cargo ship Peaceful Trader encountered 3 pirate vessels attacking a consortium transport. The pirates demanded surrender and began boarding procedures. The hologram showed a typical human merchant vessel, blocky and unremarkable in design. Then the recording showed what happened when the pirates tried to board it. Hidden weapon ports opened along the ship's hull. Defense turrets deployed from concealed compartments. In less than 30 seconds, all 3 pirate ships were disabled and their crews captured. The human captain's message to consortium security was apologetic, claiming they had only defended themselves. That cargo ship carried more firepower than most of our patrol squadrons, Zextar reported. And according to our intelligence, this is typical for human civilian vessels. The evidence continued to mount. Construction ships that could serve as mobile fortresses. Research vessels with sensor arrays more sophisticated than military reconnaissance platforms. Even human passenger liners carried defensive systems that rivaled warships from other species. Speaker Vorthak, who had been silent throughout the presentation, finally spoke. The conclusion is inescapable, he said, his reptilian voice heavy with concern. Every human presence in our galaxy represents a potential military threat. Their expansion appears peaceful, but it places weapons and trained personnel in every system they visit. They claim to be explorers and traders, added General Korth, but their capabilities suggest they are the most sophisticated military force the galaxy has ever seen. What none of the assembled commanders understood was the context behind human actions. They saw only the results, swift victories, overwhelming force, 0 casualties on the human side. They could not know that every human intervention had been carefully planned to minimize loss of life on all sides. They did not realize that the devastating efficiency they witnessed was designed to end conflicts quickly rather than prolong suffering. The military leaders saw patterns of conquest disguised as peacekeeping. They interpreted mercy as manipulation and restraint as strategic patience. In their analysis, humanity was not a species of warriors, but something far more dangerous, conquerors who had learned to disguise their intentions behind humanitarian missions. As the meeting concluded, the decision was unanimous. The human threat had to be contained before it was too late. They would present their evidence to the full Senate and demand immediate action. None of them suspected that in 3 days, humanity would prove their fears were both completely justified and utterly wrong. The underground command center beneath Seoul hummed with quiet activity as President Yoon Choi walked through the reinforced corridors toward the emergency meeting room. The facility, built deep into the bedrock beneath the Korean capital, had been designed to survive direct nuclear strikes. Today, it might need to withstand something far worse. The circular table in the Situation Room was larger than most conference tables, designed to accommodate representatives from every major human settlement across the galaxy. Today, however, only the most essential personnel were physically present. The others appeared as holographic projections, their images flickering slightly as the quantum communication arrays struggled to maintain connections across vast distances. President Choi took his seat at the head of the table and looked around at the assembled faces. These were the people who had guided humanity's expansion into the stars, who had built their civilization from a single world into a galactic presence. Now they faced the greatest crisis in human history. The ultimatum has been delivered, she began, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. The Galactic Senate demands complete disarmament within 30 standard days. Economic sanctions begin immediately. Military action will follow if we refuse to comply. General Hyun Lee, a veteran of humanity's early conflicts in space, activated his personal display with a gesture. Files marked with the highest security classifications appeared in the air before him. Madam President, I don't think the Senate understands the magnitude of what they are demanding. Show me, she replied. Dr. Ari Shin from the Advanced Defense Research Division stood and moved to the main display. Her usual calm demeanor had been replaced by visible tension. Our intelligence networks have detected concerning developments among several Senate species. They are not just preparing to disarm us, they are preparing for our elimination. The main screen filled with intercepted communications and technical specifications. President Choi studied the data with growing alarm. Biological weapons designed to target human DNA sequences. Viral agents that specifically attacked human brain chemistry. Neural disruptor technology calibrated to human nervous systems. Jun Yo, the president's chief intelligence aide, highlighted specific communications. These conversations between Thrakari military scientists and Luminari weapons designers show clear coordination. They've been working on anti-human technologies for at least 2 years. Foreign Minister Nari Lim leaned forward in her chair. They're not just afraid of our military capabilities, she said quietly. They want to make sure we can never be a threat again. Ever. The room erupted in angry voices as the implications became clear. Representatives from the outer colonies demanded immediate military response. Fleet commanders suggested preemptive strikes. Scientists proposed accelerated development of new defensive technologies. President Choi raised her hand, and the room fell silent. Admiral Kang, she said, turning to the weathered fleet commander who had overseen human naval operations for 15 years. Give me an honest assessment of our capabilities. Admiral Tai Kang smiled, but there was no humor in his expression. Madam President, that's a complicated question. What capabilities are you asking about? Start with what the Senate believes we possess. The Admiral activated his own display, showing standard fleet deployment charts. According to official records, humanity operates 2,047 military vessels of various classes. We maintain 53 orbital defense platforms around key worlds. Our ground forces number approximately 8 million personnel across all colonies. President Choi nodded. And the reality? The reality, Admiral Kang said slowly, is that those numbers represent less than 10% of our actual defensive capabilities. Dr. Shin took over the presentation, bringing up architectural plans and technical specifications. Every human installation beyond Earth was designed with dual purposes from the beginning. Our agricultural stations in the Centauri system appear to be farming operations, but they are actually regional command centers with enough computing power to coordinate fleet actions across multiple star systems. The display showed detailed schematics of what appeared to be a simple farming platform. Then the image shifted, revealing hidden compartments filled with communication arrays, tactical computers, and automated defense systems. Our mining operations in the asteroid belts, Dr. Shin continued, have been manufacturing automated defense drones for 20 years. Each facility produces approximately 1,000 units per month. They are stored in concealed depots throughout the belt. General Lee pulled up additional files. Every merchant vessel in our civilian fleet carries military-grade weapons and defensive systems. The cargo ship that Ambassador Kim traveled to Centauri Station on has enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. President Choi studied the information with amazement. How many people know about this? Outside this room? Perhaps 100 individuals across all human settlements, Admiral Kang replied. We call it the Shadow Network. It's been developed in complete secrecy since our first contact with galactic civilization. The president looked around the table. Why? Why did we build all of this in secret? Dr. Shin answered. Because we learned from Earth's history. Whenever one group possessed overwhelming military superiority, it led to conquest and oppression. We didn't want to become the galaxy's oppressors, so we hid our true capabilities. Instead, Foreign Minister Lim added, we presented ourselves as competent but not threatening. Strong enough to be useful allies, but not so strong that others would fear us. Admiral Kang brought up tactical displays showing the true extent of human capabilities. Every human settlement can function as a military base. Every trade route is monitored by concealed sensor networks. Every diplomatic mission carries enough firepower to level a city. The irony, General Lee said grimly, is that we built all of this to preserve peace. We want it to be so strong that no one would dare attack anyone under our protection. But we hid that strength so well that now they see us as the aggressor. President Choi sat back in her chair, processing the magnitude of what she was learning. They're asking us to disarm something they don't even know exists. That's correct, Admiral Kang confirmed. They think they're demanding the surrender of our conventional military. They have no idea they're asking us to reveal and dismantle the most sophisticated defense network in galactic history. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated their options. They could comply with the Senate's demands and reveal their true capabilities in the process of dismantling them. They could refuse and face the combined military might of 847 alien species. Or they could find a third option. President Choi looked around the table one more time. What would happen if we showed them what they are really asking us to disarm? Dr. Shin and Admiral Kang exchanged glances. The Admiral said carefully, if we revealed the full extent of the Shadow Network, it would demonstrate that we could have conquered the entire galaxy at any point in the past 50 years. And that we chose not to, Dr. Shin added. President Choi nodded slowly. Then perhaps it's time they learned what they're really afraid of, and why they never needed to be afraid at all. The transmission began at exactly 2 p.m. Galactic Standard Time, reaching every inhabited world simultaneously. Communication networks that normally carried routine traffic suddenly cleared as emergency protocols activated. From the bustling trade stations near the galactic core to the remote research outposts on the spiral arms, every screen displayed the same image: President Yoona Choi standing behind a simple wooden podium. Behind her, through a large window, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel against the black void. The sight was familiar to billions of beings across the galaxy. Humanity's homeworld had become an icon of peace and prosperity in the 50 years since first contact. Esteemed members of the Galactic Consular Senate, President Choi began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. Representatives of all civilized species, citizens of our shared galaxy. We have received your ultimatum demanding humanity's complete disarmament. In the Senate chambers on Centauri Station, Speaker Vorthak's scaled form tensed as he leaned forward. Around him, delegates from hundreds of species watched with nervous anticipation. They had expected anger, defiance, perhaps even threats of retaliation. What they heard instead shocked them. We agree to your demands, President Choi continued calmly. The Senate chamber erupted in chaos. Insectoid delegates clicked in surprised confusion while energy-based beings hummed in harmonic discord. Even the usually composed luminary flickered with agitation. This was not the response anyone had anticipated. However, the president continued as the noise subsided, we believe you should understand exactly what you have asked us to disarm. The camera angle shifted to show displays surrounding President Choi. The largest screen showed a peaceful scene from the Vega system, Station Harvest 7 floating serenely in space. The agricultural platform looked exactly as it always had, gentle curves designed for efficiency, solar collectors gleaming in the starlight, and observation ports showing workers tending vast hydroponic gardens. This is Station Harvest 7. President Choi said simply. Or rather, this is what you know as Station Harvest 7. The image flickered, and everything changed. The curved agricultural sections began retracting into the station's hull with mechanical precision. Where lush gardens had been visible moments before, rows upon rows of sleek automated defense drones now filled the exposed compartments. The solar collectors rotated and transformed, revealing themselves to be massive railgun arrays capable of accelerating projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. The station's gentle curves reconfigured into angular weapons platforms bristling with energy cannons and missile launchers. In the Senate chamber, General Zextar's tentacles went rigid with shock. Commander Velnari's crystalline form dimmed as she processed what she was seeing. This single agricultural station now displayed more firepower than most species' entire naval forces. But the revelations were just beginning. Across the galaxy, similar transformations began occurring. The merchant vessel Phoenix Dawn, currently docked at a trade station in the Centauri system, suddenly opened cargo bays that had always appeared to carry grain and manufactured goods. Instead, sleek fighter craft emerged in perfect formation, their advanced designs unlike anything in the galactic databases. Mining platform Genesis in the asteroid belt extended what everyone had assumed were ore processing arrays. The truth was far more dramatic. Sensor networks spanning hundreds of kilometers unfurled like technological spider webs, capable of detecting and tracking objects across multiple star systems simultaneously. Most shocking of all was the diplomatic vessel that had carried Ambassador Gina Kim to the Senate just days earlier. The modest ship, designed to appear unremarkable and peaceful, began unfolding like a mechanical flower. Hidden weapons systems emerged from concealed compartments, shield generators powerful enough to protect entire fleets activated, and communication arrays that dwarfed anything possessed by Senate species extended into space. For 50 years, President Choi continued, her voice maintaining its calm tone despite the magnitude of what she was revealing, every human presence in your galaxy has served a dual purpose. What you have seen as civilian infrastructure has always been our distributed defense network. The displays around her now showed hundreds of similar revelations occurring simultaneously across human-occupied space. Agricultural stations revealed themselves as regional command centers. Research facilities extended weapon systems that made Senate dreadnoughts look like patrol boats. Even simple colony transport ships opened hidden compartments containing enough firepower to level continents. Admiral Tai Kang's weathered face appeared on a secondary screen beside the president. Every human installation can coordinate defensive actions across light years instantaneously through our quantum communication network, he explained matter-of-factly. What you believe to be isolated civilian settlements are actually nodes in the most sophisticated military network ever constructed. In the Senate chamber, delegates sat in stunned silence as the true scale of humanity's capabilities became clear. The 8,000 ships they had identified as humanity's merchant fleet were revealing themselves to be mobile fortresses, each one capable of single-handedly conquering entire star systems. The mining operations that had seemed so beneficial to galactic commerce were actually manufacturing centers producing advanced military hardware on an industrial scale. We built all of this, President Choi said, her expression remaining peaceful even as she revealed humanity's overwhelming military superiority, not for conquest, but for the defense of peace. Every system you see was designed to deter aggression so effectively that it would never need to be used. The scope of the deception was staggering. For half a century, humanity had maintained the illusion of being simply another species among many, competent but not threatening. In reality, they possessed the capability to conquer the entire galaxy and had chosen not to use it. Our strategy was simple, Admiral Kang continued. Make ourselves strong enough to protect peace, but appear weak enough to avoid triggering fear and aggression from others. We succeeded perhaps too well. President Choi gestured to the continuing displays of previously hidden human capabilities. Space stations revealed their true nature as fortress cities. Exploration vessels showed weapon systems that could crack planets. Even civilian passenger liners displayed defensive capabilities that exceeded most military vessels. This is what we are choosing to disarm, she said quietly. This is what we are willing to surrender to maintain galactic peace. We hope that in seeing what we could have done, you will understand why we chose never to do it. The transmission continued for another hour, revealing layer after layer of humanity's hidden strength. By the end, it was clear that humans could have conquered every species in the galaxy within months of first contact. Instead, they had spent 50 years secretly protecting everyone else. As the broadcast ended, the galaxy fell silent, struggling to comprehend what they had just witnessed. The silence in the Galactic Senate chamber was so complete that the soft humming of the life support system seemed unnaturally loud. 847 delegates from across the galaxy sat frozen in their seats, staring at the displays that continued to show humanity's true capabilities. Some had not moved for several minutes, their minds struggling to process what they were witnessing. Speaker Vorthak's normally steady voice cracked as he spoke. All of this, for 50 years, all of this was hidden from us. His scaled hands shook as he gestured toward the screens showing human installations across the galaxy revealing their true nature. President Choi's image on the main display nodded with what appeared to be genuine sadness. We learned from our own history that overwhelming power without wisdom leads to tyranny and oppression. We chose a different path. We chose to hide our strength so that others would not fear us. The displays showed more revelations with each passing moment. Research stations that could manufacture fleets. Exploration vessels that could travel across the galaxy in mere hours. Communication networks that could coordinate actions between distant star systems instantly. Every human presence in the galaxy was revealing capabilities that exceeded the combined military might of dozens of other species. General Zextar floated in his tank, his tentacles moving erratically as he processed the information. The Zephyrian War, he said slowly. You told us it took 3 days to end that conflict. But with these capabilities, we could have ended it in 3 hours, President Choi confirmed quietly. We extended the timeline to allow enemy forces to evacuate civilian areas and organize surrender procedures. Every engagement we participated in was deliberately prolonged to minimize casualties on all sides. In the diplomatic section of the chamber, Ambassador Gina Kim stood slowly. Her usual professional composure had been replaced by something deeper and more personal. The weight of humanity's secret seemed to press down on her shoulders as she addressed the assembly. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "You demanded our disarmament because you feared our military strength. But you never understood what our true strength actually was." She paused, looking around at the faces of beings who had, just hours earlier, been demanding humanity's complete submission. Our true strength was never in our weapons or our technology. It was in our decision not to use them. For 50 years, we have possessed the power to conquer every civilization in this galaxy. Instead, we chose to protect you. The screens around the chamber began showing a different kind of display. Across human space, the installations that had just revealed their hidden capabilities were now beginning systematic shutdown procedures. Weapons systems that had been concealed for decades powered down permanently. Defense networks that had secretly protected trade routes and colony worlds went dark. The hidden infrastructure that had maintained galactic peace for half a century was dismantling itself. Admiral Kang's weathered face appeared on a secondary screen. "We could have conquered this entire galaxy within 12 months of our first contact with galactic civilization," he stated matter-of-factly. "Our technology was already superior, our tactical thinking more advanced, our industrial capacity greater than anything that existed among the known species." He gestured to tactical displays showing the true scope of human capabilities. "Instead, we spent 50 years building the most comprehensive defensive network in galactic history. Not to conquer, but to ensure that no one would ever again need to fear conquest by anyone." Commander Velnari of the Silicon Architects finally found her voice. Her crystalline form flickered with confusion and something approaching awe. "But why?" she asked. "Why hide such power? Why not simply demonstrate your superiority and demand peace?" President Choi's expression remained patient, almost maternal. "Because the moment we revealed our true capabilities, fear would have replaced cooperation. Every species in this chamber would have united against us, not because we were evil, but because we were too powerful to be trusted." She gestured to the ongoing shutdown displays. "We chose to appear strong enough to be useful allies, but never so strong that you would see us as existential threats. We won your wars quickly to reduce suffering, not to show off our dominance. We carried visible weapons so you would feel safe rather than surprised by hidden ones." The chamber remained silent as delegates struggled with the implications of what they were learning. The humans had not been the aggressive threat they had imagined. Instead, they had been secret guardians, protecting galactic civilization while appearing to be just another member species. Minutes passed before Speaker Vorthak spoke again, his voice hollow with realization. "What have we done? What have we asked them to do?" President Choi's smile was sad but understanding. "You have asked us to prove that power without wisdom is meaningless. You have forced us to demonstrate that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice to protect." As the displays continued showing humanity's great hidden fleets powering down across the galaxy, as communication networks went silent and defensive installations shut down permanently, the terrible truth became clear to every delegate in the chamber. They had not demanded the disarmament of a threat to galactic peace. They had demanded the disarmament of galactic peace itself. The next day, Resolution 2388 passed with complete unanimity. The formal apology to humanity was unprecedented in Senate history. The desperate request for humans to reconsider their disarmament was accompanied by offers of technology, resources, and political concessions that would have been unthinkable just days earlier. But the damage was already done. For the first time in 50 years, the galaxy's hidden protectors were no longer watching. The secret guardians who had prevented countless conflicts and maintained stability across hundreds of star systems had voluntarily removed themselves from the equation. In the deep space between star systems, in the dark regions where civilized species rarely traveled, ancient threats that had been quietly held in check for decades began to stir. Pirates who had been mysteriously unsuccessful for years started planning new raids. Warlords who had found their ambitions constantly frustrated began mobilizing forgotten fleets. The galaxy had demanded to see humanity's true power, and they had gotten their wish. But they had also learned that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is the one that chooses never to act. Now that force was gone, and in the growing darkness, everything that humanity had kept at bay began moving toward the light.